Most people think money grows slowly because they're doing something wrong. But the real reason is much simpler. In the beginning, your money behaves like a faucet that barely drips. You turn the handle, you wait, and nothing seems to happen. Then, suddenly, one day, it starts flowing. The truth is that wealth doesn't grow in a straight line. It grows in jumps, and there's a simple rule that reveals exactly when the first big jump happens, the moment your money finally doubles. It's called the Rule of 72. And once you understand how it works, the entire game changes. Saving stops feeling hopeless. Investing stops feeling confusing. And the future stops feeling far away. If doubling your money feels impossible right now, you're about to see why it isn't. Most people don't realize this, but the biggest obstacle to building wealth has nothing to do with income, discipline, or investment choices. It starts much earlier, in a place most people never question: the way the human brain understands growth. We're wired to expect results that show up quickly. If we exercise, we want to see changes in the mirror. If we study, we want to feel smarter. If we save, we want the account balance to look different tomorrow. But money doesn't work that way in the beginning. When you start investing, the first dollars you earn are so small they feel like an insult. A few cents, a few dollars. Gains so tiny they're almost invisible. Your brain looks at that and thinks, this isn't working. And that thought is exactly why so many people quit before anything meaningful happens. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Early growth is intentionally boring. It's slow, flat, and almost silent. It feels like nothing is happening, even when everything is happening. Your contributions are building the foundation. Your consistency is building the structure, and your money is quietly preparing for the moment when it finally accelerates. The problem is that most people compare the slow beginning to the fast middle and assume they're failing. They're not. They're just experiencing the natural rhythm of compounding. Slow, slower, nothing. Then suddenly progress. This is why the Rule of 72 feels like magic. It doesn't change the math. It changes your expectations. And once your expectations shift, the journey finally makes sense. In the beginning, money feels slow for a reason no personal finance book explains properly. Your brain is comparing what you expect to see with what actually happens. You deposit $100. You invest $50. You wait a month, and your account moves. Almost nothing. It feels like sweeping a huge floor with a toothbrush. Your effort is real. Your progress is microscopic. And the gap between the two creates a silent frustration that knocks millions of people off track before their time. That's because the early stage of wealth isn't about growing. It's about building the base that allows growth to happen. Think of it like filling a bucket with a dripping faucet. The first few drops look useless. The bucket seems empty. You question whether the water is even going in. Then, when you least expect it, there's already an entire layer of water at the bottom, but you only noticed once it became visible. Money behaves the same way. The first $500 feels meaningless. The first $1,000 feels fragile. Even the first $5,000 feels like it could disappear with one emergency. But something subtle is happening underneath it. You're building financial weight. You're building stability. You're building the pressure that allows compounding to finally push forward. People don't quit because they're incapable. They quit because small numbers deceive their perception. They look at the beginning and assume the rest of the journey will be the same. But small numbers aren't the destination. They're the ignition. And the moment your money crosses a certain threshold, the same engine that seemed weak suddenly proves it was powerful the whole time. Most people hear about the Rule of 72 and think it sounds like a trick, a hack, a shortcut someone invented to make investing feel more exciting. But it's not a trick. It's a pattern that has been happening quietly in the background of every savings account, every investment, and every retirement plan for decades. The Rule of 72 is simple. You take the expected annual return. You divide 72 by that number, and the result tells you how long it takes for your money to double. If you earn 6% a year, your money doubles in about 12 years. If you earn 8%, it doubles in 9 years. If you earn 12%, it doubles in 6 years. No spreadsheets, No calculators, no formulas you need a finance degree to understand. It works because compounding doesn't grow in a straight line. It grows in a curve that starts flat, stays flat, and then suddenly bends upward in a way that feels almost unfair. That curve is the reason small numbers feel disappointing. It's also the reason big numbers feel explosive. Think of it like heating a pot of water. Nothing seems to happen at 90 degrees, or at 120, or even at 180, but the entire time, energy is building, pressure is rising, and the moment the water crosses 212, everything changes. Money works the same way. You don't see anything happen until suddenly you do. And when the curve starts bending upward, it feels instant. The rule of 72 simply reveals where on that curve you're standing. It turns confusion into clarity. It turns waiting into expectation. And it turns the abstract nature of compounding into something you can actually plan around. You stop guessing. You start understanding. And understanding is the first step toward control. Most people grow up learning simple interest, even if no one calls it that. You put in money. It grows a little. You get the same amount each year. It feels predictable. It feels safe. And it also feels painfully slow. Compound interest is nothing like that. It doesn't reward you evenly. It doesn't grow in straight lines. It grows in layers. It grows on top of itself. It grows by feeding yesterday's progress into today's results. Simple interest is like stacking bricks one by one. Each brick adds the same height. Nothing surprising happens. Compound interest is like stacking bricks, and then discovering the stack multiplies when you're not looking. One layer leads to two. Two layers lead to four. And the growth stops depending on your hand and starts depending on time. But here's the part people misunderstand. In the beginning, both simple and compound interest feel the same. They move slowly. They look identical. And that's why the early years feel disappointing. It's only after enough layers build up that the gap explodes. Simple interest keeps walking in a straight line. Compound interest turns the corner and starts running. That corner is what the rule of 72 reveals. It tells you when your money stops crawling and starts doubling. It shows the exact moment compound interest breaks away and leaves simple interest behind. That's why understanding the difference isn't academic. It's practical. It's the moment you stop expecting small results and start preparing for exponential ones. Compounding doesn't feel powerful in the beginning because it hides its strength. It grows in places you can't see yet. It builds momentum long before it shows results. And that invisibility is what confuses most people. Your brain looks at the early numbers and sees nothing happening. A few dollars earned, a few cents added. Progress so tiny it barely registers. Your mind compares that microscopic growth to the effort you're putting in, and the math feels unfair. You save for months. You invest consistently, and your balance looks almost unchanged. It feels like waiting for water to boil. Quiet, still, unimpressive, until it suddenly isn't. That's the trap. Your brain is wired to notice big changes, not quiet ones. It sees the jump, but not the buildup. It remembers the moment things took off, but forgets the months when nothing seemed to move. But compounding does not start with speed. It starts with structure. It starts with pressure slowly building underneath the surface. It starts with small gains stacking on top of each other until they finally break through. And here's the part most people miss. The early years aren't supposed to feel rewarding. They're supposed to feel boring, because boredom is the sign that compounding is still in its quiet phase. The phase where nothing looks different, even though everything is changing. The moment the numbers become visible is not the moment compounding begins. It's the moment compounding becomes undeniable. And once it becomes visible, it never goes back to being quiet again. Most people underestimate what $1,000 can do in the American market. Not because the math is complicated, but because the early results look too small to take seriously. At 4%, $1,000 doubles in about 18 years. At 6%, it doubles in 12. At 8%, around 9. At 10%, roughly 7. And at 12%, just 6 years. The numbers look simple, but the experience doesn't feel simple at all. In the first year, at 8%, you earn about $80. That is the price of a dinner out. It feels like nothing. Then the next year, You earn a little more because the previous $80 is now working too. Still small, still quiet, still invisible. But watch what happens as the years pass. Year 4 feels better. Year 6 feels different. By year 9, the growth curve starts bending upward. Not because you suddenly changed anything, but because your earlier dollars have multiplied into dozens of tiny workers that now pull together. It is like planting a tree in the backyard. For a long time, it looks like a stick in the ground. Then one day, the trunk thickens. The branches spread. And what once looked fragile suddenly looks unstoppable. The US market works the same way. The first years feel slow. The middle years feel steady. The later years feel explosive. And that is the moment people finally realize something important. The goal was never to make $1,000 grow fast. The goal was to let time turn $1,000 into something you could never create by effort alone. That is the quiet power of real US returns. And it is the reason compounding feels like magic only after it has been working for years. Time is the part of wealth building most people misunderstand. Not because it's complicated, but because it's quiet. It doesn't announce progress. It doesn't celebrate your effort. It doesn't give you feedback. It just keeps working in the background. Think of it like heating a pot of water. For minutes, nothing seems to happen. It looks the same. It feels the same. Then suddenly, without warning, it begins to boil. The energy was building the entire time. You just couldn't see it. Money behaves exactly the same way. The early years feel flat because most of your growth is hiding beneath the surface. Your contributions are filling in the gaps. Your consistency is stacking the layers. Your discipline is building the pressure that compounding needs to erupt. This is why two people can invest the same amount but end up with dramatically different results. The one who started earlier wasn't smarter. They weren't luckier. They simply gave time more room to do the heavy lifting. Because time multiplies everything. Your good decisions, your discipline, your patience, and even your mistakes. The longer your money stays invested, the more each dollar gains the chance to grow its own branches. Those branches grow more branches. And eventually the structure becomes so wide and so interconnected that it expands even when you do nothing. Time doesn't just grow your money. It separates you from randomness. It protects you from bad months. It smooths out volatility. And it gives every smart decision a chance to mature. This is why wealth accelerates in a way that feels unfair. Not because the rules changed, but because time finally had enough space to reveal what it was building all along. At some point in your journey, the numbers stop being the most important part. The real shift happens inside you. And it's subtle. It doesn't come with fireworks or big moments. It arrives quietly, almost unnoticed, like a room getting brighter without anyone flipping a switch. Before this point, money feels like something you chase. You're pushing, you're grinding, you're trying to make progress happen. But after understanding how doubling works, something clicks. Your mindset moves from urgency to strategy. Your decisions slow down, your thinking sharpens, and you stop seeing every dollar as fragile. You start seeing it as a worker, not a superhero, not a miracle, just a reliable employee that performs when given time. You also stop treating money emotionally. A bad month doesn't scare you. A good month doesn't make you reckless. Your feelings no longer dictate your strategy. The panic you used to feel when the market dipped fades. The excitement you used to feel during a quick gain becomes calmer. Your reactions become measured, not impulsive, because now you understand the bigger picture. You understand that doubling isn't magic, it's math. You understand that growth doesn't arrive all at once. It arrives in layers, quiet layers, slow layers, but layers that never stop stacking. This shift changes everything. You stop comparing yourself to people who got lucky. You stop looking for shortcuts. You stop expecting overnight results. You begin to trust consistency more than intensity. You begin to trust time more than timing. You begin to trust the system more than your emotions. And that's the moment wealth building becomes sustainable. Not because you're making more money, but because you finally think like someone who can keep money, grow money, and multiply money. This is the mindset that transforms the rule of 72 from a formula into a plan. By the time you understand the rule of 72, something far more important than doubling your money has already happened. You stop seeing wealth as a mystery. You stop seeing progress as luck. You stop seeing the journey as something reserved for people who already have money. Instead, you begin to recognize the structure behind it. You see that small deposits are not insignificant. They are seeds. They are pressure. They are the foundation that allows growth to eventually show up. You see that early frustration isn't a sign of failure. It's a sign you're still in the silent stage. The stage where the bucket is filling drop by drop. The stage where the roots are growing underground before anything appears above the soil. You see that time is no longer your enemy. It becomes your greatest ally. It becomes the force that works even when you're tired, distracted, or doubting yourself. And you see that wealth is not built by extraordinary moments. It is built by ordinary decisions repeated quietly over years. When this understanding settles in, everything changes. You stop chasing shortcuts. You stop looking for perfect timing. You stop expecting fast results to validate your effort. Instead, you start operating with calm, with clarity, with patience, with conviction. You trust the process because you finally understand how the process works. And when that shift happens, your future stops being a question. It becomes a direction. This is the real transformation, not the doubling itself, but the person you become once you understand why money grows the way it does. If this video helped you understand how the rule of 72 really works, like and subscribe for more stories that reveal how money truly grows. And tell us in the comments, what's the biggest obstacle keeping you from doubling your money today? And remember, every dollar you save today is a silent worker that never clocks out.